All right, guys. So when I went to CES this year and I checked out the EarFun booth, they have two headphones that they were showcasing that were coming out this year. One of them was the EarFun Wave Life, which we've already checked out. And to be honest, I just wasn't very impressed with it. But the other one that they had at the time was the EarFun Tune Pro. This one I was very intrigued about because this one was going to be their flagship wireless noise canceling headphones. And I really didn't get to test them out on the showroom at the time, but just simply by picking them up and seeing the features they had, you can tell that it was a much more premium headphone than the Wave Life. And at the time, I was told these were going to come in retailing at about $100, maybe even a little bit more. So I was kind of surprised to see that now that they're released, they're coming in at $69. And actually on Amazon right now, they have the little coupon box and they've sent me a code, which I'll have in the description. So right now you can pick these up for only $52. And I want to go ahead and make a pretty bold statement at the beginning of this video. I actually consider the EarFun Tune Pro to be a pretty good competitor, or pretty close competitor, to the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra and also the Sony WH-1000XM series. Now I have not tried the 6 yet, so I'm not going to compare them to those, but for a $52 pair of headphones to come in at least comparable to the more expensive ones like that, I think that's pretty impressive. But I'm not saying they're exactly the same because again, we'll talk about some of this throughout this video, but this is again more of a high-end offering. What makes these kind of unique is they are using a dual driver setup. It is a 40mm PET driver with also a 10mm LCP driver. So they have two different dynamic drivers, which is allowing these to handle a lot of low end, but not have it just basically drowned out everything else. They have things kind of very well separated. We'll talk about this once we get to the sound itself. The build quality is pretty solid. Again, much more weight than what the EarFun Wave Life have. Not to the point where it would be uncomfortable, but to the point where you pick it up and you feel like you have more of a premium device. Now it does fold inward. It does also swivel, so there's different ways to break this down. There is a pleather headband, which gives you plenty of padding. They also have pleather ear pads, and the ear pads on these are memory foam, so it is a very comfortable headphone to wear. I never had any issues with feeling like I needed to take these off my head. And then as far as the controls on here, it is using physical buttons. Now, I've said this before, I'm more of a fan of physical buttons because I feel like touch controls, swipe gestures and things like that, even though it seems cool, it really is making you do accidental things you're not meaning to do. So like when you go to adjust your headphones, it'll pause or do something else. You don't really have to worry about that with headphones that have physical buttons. And also, I'm happy to say that they do allow you to control everything. Now, if you do want to switch some things around, these do work with EarFun's app, which I still feel like for the most part is a pretty bare bones app. It makes sure that you can do just enough. So again, you can switch around the controls. You can go in and switch around to different EQ settings. You can go in and customize the EQ settings the way that you want. But there's also the ability to switch these into multi-connection mode. So they do support that because they do have Bluetooth 5.4. The Tune Pros also have a gaming mode or low latency mode if you need to use them for gaming or watching a movie and you want to make sure you cut down as much lag as possible. It also has what they call a theater mode. This essentially is just a spatial audio mode, so it kind of gives things more of a reverb or echo effect. This is effective for things like gaming and movies, but again, I've said this before and I'll say it, pretty much probably the whole time I review headphones. Spatial audio for me, I just do not like with my music. I feel like it messes with things too much and it takes away from what the song is supposed to actually sound like. So it's good for certain things, but not good for everything. Also within the app, you can switch between the different noise canceling modes. Now, before we get into that, I do want to say that if you're using them in wireless mode, you have hybrid active noise canceling. So it's using the mics on the outside, but also mics on the inside to try to blend things. But there's also the ability to use these in wired mode and also have noise canceling, but it is just the feed forward mic. So it's just using the outside mics to try to cancel out noise. So your best noise canceling is going to be in wireless mode, but it is nice that you have the ability to use them both ways. Now, another thing is it also says that these are high-res certified. That is not high-res wireless certified. It's only high-res when you use it in wired mode. So do keep that in mind. But honestly, I didn't notice any kind of compression when I was listening to my music in wireless mode, so it's not really an issue anyway. But going back to the noise canceling. Now within the app, you can switch it between the different modes. There is a strong mode, which is pretty much the mode that I left it in the whole time. There is a comfort mode, so this makes the noise canceling not be as strong. So if you're somebody that noise canceling kind of gives you that vacuum feel and it's uncomfortable, so the comfort mode kind of keeps you from having that kind of issue. There's also a wind mode, so if you want to block out wind and not have that affect your audio, it's nice that it has this, and you can just have it in normal mode and not use noise canceling at all. And the noise canceling on this pair, in strong mode anyway, is actually very effective. Again, I would not put this against the Sonys or the Bose when it comes to noise canceling. I think they're just much better when it comes to this. But as far as lower tones, like, when you're traveling, you're trying to block out engine noises of a plane or a car, it does a very, very good job at this. In fact, it even does a pretty decent job of blocking out some higher tones like people talking. But those noises are going to get in a little bit more than they do with the Sony or Bose. But again, we're talking about such a huge price gap that it seems kind of stupid to compare these to those when it comes to the noise canceling. The awareness mode, though, on these is very good. I never had an issue with being able to hear the things around me. In fact, if somebody came up to talk to me, it's even good to carry on a conversation. You don't have to take your headphones off because the awareness mode does sound pretty natural overall. Now, as far as what you get in the box, now this was kind of, again, confusing to me because this is labeled as a Pro model, so you would expect a nice, hard case, nice travel case, because with these having the noise canceling that they do, this is a pair that you would want to use while traveling. But there's no hard case, there's no pouch, there's nothing to keep these in. So if you are somebody that's worried about those kind of things, you will have to buy a case separately. But it does come with a normal 3.5mm cable, and it also comes with a USB-C to USB-C cable. This can also be used, not only for charging, but also to listen to your music. Again, I kind of find myself using it that way because the USB-C to USB-C is allowing you to have, again, that high-res audio. Now, speaking of the charging, battery life is super impressive on this pair. Now, if you use these with the noise canceling off and just use it in normal mode, you can squeeze 120 hours of battery life out of the headphones. That's, again, some of the best that I've seen. And even with the noise canceling on, you can still get around 80 hours on a single charge. So that really means this is a pair you're not going to have to charge often. But honestly, if you do pick them up and they are dead, it really has one of the best fast charging features that I've seen, where a 10-minute charge is going to get you 15 hours of use. So again, you're walking out the door, your headphones are dead, 10-minute charge, 15 hours, that's a full day. And it's likely going to be fine for 2 or 3 days for most people. Now, if you are going to use these for taking phone calls, they do have 5 microphones, and it's also using AI to basically cancel out the noise around you. Again, this is another one of those times where I think they're just using AI as a term to grab attention. They're basically noise canceling mics, so it's making sure that those sounds don't come in while you're on a call. But you guys can be a judge by listening to a test here. So I'm out here doing a mic test with the EarFun TUNEPROGS. I'm doing this outdoors and I'm kind of near an AC unit, which you might be able to hear it pick up. There's no wind, it's not really any traffic noise around me, but this is just to give you an idea of what it would sound like if you were to take a call in public. So now let's talk about the sound. And the first thing I want to point out, because this is always something that gets asked, is yes, this pair gets very, very loud, especially in wireless mode. Now, I did notice in the USB-C to USB-C mode, it is a little bit quieter, so it doesn't get as loud that way. So do keep that in mind. But this pair is tuned to be dynamic. It's not trying to hold anything back. Now, this is the way that it's tuned out of the box. Again, keep in mind, you can go in and mess around with EQ settings, but I really do like the way that they're tuned out of the box. It has plenty of punch. Sub bass in this pair is picked up very nicely. I never had any issue with feeling like I could feel the punch at the low end, and this is even at lower volumes. And I think that's because of the dual driver setup. So again, if they're trying to really emphasize bass out of one of the drivers, that lower volume isn't going to be holding it back like it would in other headphones. But the plus is they also bumped up the mids and the treble. Now the treble has much more of a sparkle and it's bumped up more than the mids itself. So what that's giving you is plenty of punch in the low end and a fairly bright, kind of like sparkly treble. But the good thing is there's plenty of space here. It doesn't feel congested. It doesn't feel muddy. The details in the mids are excellent. And the reason I like the fact that they didn't push them too forward is it doesn't sound like the singer's right in front of your face, because sometimes when things are tuned that way, it sounds like the instruments and everything else are too far back. I didn't have an issue with that with this pair. I felt like they just bumped the mids slightly forward so that it didn't get lost in, if you're listening to genres like metal, where there's a lot going on, there's some headphones where this tends to get a little just mushy. And that, again, I didn't experience that with this pair. It's fun to listen to. It is not one, honestly, that I would use to pick apart music. It's not reference or flat. It is made to be consumer friendly, so it has that basically Harman curve tuning that appeals to most people. And also when it comes to the sound stage and the sound imaging, because of the way things kind of feel spaced out, it feels like a pretty open headphone. I felt like I was in a large room, and honestly, I never had an issue being able to tell where different sounds are coming from. But my overall opinion on the headphones is this is the one to get from EarFun. And in fact, as of right now, I would say this is the one to get if you're looking to spend under $100. But I do hate that the EarFun does not come with a case. And I don't like that they don't have smart sensors, because I've gotten used to this with pretty much all of my other noise canceling wireless headphones. But this is the trade-off when it comes to the cost. If they had to do this to kind of cut this back where you can get it for $70 and then right now, again, $52, I think it's worth the trade-off, because what you are getting is a pair that has solid noise canceling. You're getting a pair that has excellent battery life. You're getting a pair that has a gaming or low latency mode, so you can use it for different types of media. And the sound punches well above its price tag. Again, the sound is where I would say it is comparable to the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultras. I did not expect this at all. Again, because I was disappointed in the Wave Life, I kind of went into these with lower expectations, and this pair just blew me away. I think the Tune Pro is definitely the way to go. If you're not wanting to spend a lot of money and you want a very good, well-rounded noise canceling pair of headphones, it's going to be hard to beat these. But guys, that's my video on the new EarFun Tune Pro. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.